NFL Network analyst, former NFL personnel executive Marc Ross, friend of the show, and recently put together a segment with some of his NFL Network cohorts on mid-round gems in the NFL draft, which finished up just a week ago. And as we understand it, Mark, there was a Bills player that made your list. Tell us who and tell us why.
Yeah, that was Landon Jackson, third round pick, who I thought had a chance actually in the draft, maybe even to sneak into the bottom of the first. And, when you watch players, first, you just don't have to look for them. They jump off the screen, and Landon Jackson really did that when I watched him. And, physical guy, plays hard, he shows up all the time, or he's productive or disruptive at what he's doing. Played his best game, actually. This will feel good to Bills fans against Will Campbell, the number 4 pick in the draft to the Patriots. I mean, he really wore Will Campbell out. So, I think you're going to get great value there with Landon Jackson just because of the production, plays the game the right way. I know the Bills have taken a lot of swings on a lot of guys at that position the last few years, but I think this one actually might stick and, have an impact player.
Did this draft live up to what we thought coming in? A lot of defensive linemen, a lot of quality defensive tackles. I know it's way early in their careers and stuff, but did it fall kind of the way you did? I mean, Shedeur aside with his fall, but for the most part, this draft went to me, it went just about like we all thought it might. To you, was there surprises?
Well, I thought going into it that this really was almost the most wide open draft I'd seen where there was usually there's like 20 some players like, okay, these guys are definite first rounders or something. And this, I thought there was a lot of guys. I just mentioned Landon Jackson, where there was just a lot of guys going into the second and third rounds that almost had equal value of those that got taken in the first round. I mean, really, I could pick out some people that were maybe even the 10th pick, 11th pick in the draft. I can't say we're better than someone that got taken in the second and third round. But, definitely when that run, we talked about a lot of defensive linemen getting taken. Definitely when that run started, they started going, a lot of offensive linemen in the first round. I think that was really the main thing of this draft was like, people was like, we have to have offensive linemen in this draft. And you saw all those go early. Quarterback always drives, and there wasn't a whole ton of that, controversy with the quarterback except for the Shedeur situation. So, yeah, it definitely was a fun draft going in. Not a ton of star power, but definitely was still fun.
You mentioned how you thought Landon Jackson could almost sneak into the bottom of the first. Bills GM Brandon Beane had an interesting comment post-draft where he said if you went off of Deion Walker's 2023 tape, people would have taken him in the first round. Now, obviously, his 2024 tape was not as good, but the Kentucky defensive tackle, what kind of mid-round value did you see in him as a fourth-round selection on day 3 if they can get him back to the player he was in 2023?
Yeah, those are always the scary guys in the draft. We're always in our draft meetings with our scouts. If he plays like the last year, those are the ones where it's, I don't know. Those are the ones that are the scary ones. So you have to look into those factors of, did you overvalue him the year before, just when you're watching flashes? Because that's what happens when you watch younger guys. You just see flashes of good things and you don't really study them and watch them as a whole. And that may have happened with him where this year, once people really dialed in and started looking at them, looking at Walker and okay, the down in, down out inconsistencies that he had this year, where a lot of times where I talked about Landon Jackson, you don't have to look for him. Walker was the opposite, where you're like, okay, big guy, come on, let's do something. So that's always the interesting discussions in draft rooms of can we get it out of whatever player that is on a consistent basis, and that'll be the task of the Bills coaches to see, okay, these flashes that we see, can we have him do this on a consistent basis?
Give us some of your other names of your favorite guys who maybe are going to emerge from the mid rounds of this draft into front page news when on Monday afternoons after these games are played.
Well, I don't know about mid, but I mean, just the Bills draft as a whole, I thought was tremendous. Yeah, I didn't think going in, of course, I don't think anyone could predict it. Like, hey, just go take all defense. But when you look at them, like the offense is not the problem, the last few years of what's going to get them over the hump. Like they can go score 30 on anybody. It's the inability to get stops when they've really needed to get stops. And, that starts with defense. And Sean, of course, a defensive coach. And, that's his where he honed his game on the defensive side, so that's got to hurt him even more. So just the concerted effort of let's go get all defensive players. Absolutely love Maxwell Harrison. I think I thought he was the best cover corner, pure cover corner in the draft. Yes, including you, Travis Hunter. Just electric with his movements and athletic ability, the confidence, the ball skills, and then to triple up on the defensive line there with TJ Sanders, just a junkyard dog in there. Sort of the opposite of Walker, where TJ plays the game the right way and it brings it every play, and may not have the elite ability, but what you're getting in the competitiveness and football instincts of it. So, as a whole, I think they did a lot of good things there with players that I really liked.
You mentioned how a lot of teams made it a priority to get offensive linemen in round one. Every one of the division rivals did that. Will Campbell to the Patriots, Armand Membo to the Jets. Dolphins go D-line with Kenneth Grant before they go O-line with the guard, out of Arizona in Sava Anea. But I'm not saying that the rest of the division took a page out of Buffalo's book, but the Bills have prioritized the lines. They've won 5 straight division titles. It's like the rest of the division finally said, you know what, maybe we should start drafting some linemen too, because at the end of the day, the Patriots draft 3, the Dolphins draft 2 or 3 here on the O-line alone. So it just seems like the lines finally are priorities for everybody in the division, and I can't say that was the case the last few years.
Yeah, well, look, the Bills are in a different class than the rest of the division. The Bills' goals are win the Super Bowl, not to win. They know they're going to win the division unless something unforeseen happens. It's how do we beat the Chiefs? How do we win the Super Bowl? That's what they're playing for. Whereas the rest, the Patriots, I thought did a fantastic job of, okay, we're on the way up. We got this young quarterback we took last year. How do we surround him with an infrastructure for him to succeed? The Jets and the Dolphins are kind of in the middle where they can, Jets trying to come up with Justin Fields experiment, new head coach, and the Dolphins are just kind of where are we as an organization and how do we help Tua? But the Bills are on a different level. Those other 3 teams are trying to catch up to what the Bills are doing, whether that's drafting on the line, whether that's getting a better quarterback. They're all at different positions where they are in their development, but they're all chasing the Bills. And the blueprint is number one. Forget the lines. No one's close to Josh Allen. It's other teams. So
Yeah.
until Drake May shows he can be, I think really the Patriots, and they're the only one that really has a chance.
Right, and that's really true. I mean, you got the Dolphins; they've got their guy in Tua. You can think what you want about Tua, whether you can stay on the field or how much they have to do to help him. Drake May seems to be that guy now with Mike Vrabel. In the 11 picks they took, a lot of help for him on both sides of the ball. They got better, and Vrabel with a whole new philosophy you got to think that Patriots are going to take a giant leap forward. And of course, with a new head coach in New York again with the Jets, it's kind of a wait and see. We don't know what that's going to look like under Aaron Glenn because we don't know what kind of coach he's going to be. So you're right. All 3 of those teams are chasing Buffalo, but 2 of them think they've got their quarterback. The Jets, I think, are still wondering how much of a gap. Last year, the Bills were supposed to be 3rd or 4th. Now they're here we are. So the narrative can be what it is at this time of year. But how good can the Patriots get? You said it. How good can the Patriots get? How much can Aaron Glenn do in year 1? And how much is it going to take for the Dolphins to close that gap?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned last year, this time there was a lot of question marks about the Bills with all the losses on offense and if Josh could be that guy. Well, he showed, yep, I can carry this team. Everybody jump on my back and I'll raise the level of everyone else. And really upped his game there. And then the other team, the Dolphins aren't going anywhere with Tua. We've seen that, we've done that, we know what they are. They're go get them in the cold. They're not going to win a game. They're not going to win a competitive game. So I don't believe in the Dolphins at all. The Jets, I love Aaron Glenn, what he did last year with Detroit, but still just the team as a whole, they'll be competitive. I think just having stability there, getting Aaron Rodgers out of the building, all the nonsense that was going on there with the Jets, I think they'll be better just because of that. Now, whether that's good enough to beat the Bills, I don't see that at all. And then, as I've said, the Patriots are really the wild card of because Mike Vrabel has shown I can be a playoff winning coach. I can bring stability and competitiveness to an organization. He's shown he can do that. And now Drake May has showed the flashes last year where he really was doing it all on his own. for the most part, and they didn't have a lot of talent. And not just the draft, but even in the offseason, they huge free agent signings with Milton Williams and Carlton Davis and Harold Landry, where I thought they made smart. They spent a lot of money, but they had the money to spend. They made a lot of smart free agent signings in the offseason. And now I think their draft, they did a good job in the draft to help out Drake May as well. So they're really the X factor of they will be a lot better. It's just how much better will they be?
Yeah. Talking with NFL Network analyst, former NFL personnel exec Marc Ross. And you mentioned the Chiefs as still the team to catch. They're still the standard bearer in the AFC. And you look at their draft, and they go O-line, D-line, D-line, their first 3 picks, with Josh Simmons, who, granted, is coming back from a patella tendon injury. We'll have to see how that plays out for him in his rookie season. And then Omar Norman-Lott, the defensive tackle, Ashton Gelati, the edge rusher out of Louisville. And then they got a nice player in the mid-rounds too, Mark, and Jalen Royals, the receiver out of Utah State in round 4. And then they did like an Isaiah Pacheco redux in the 7th round with that Brashard Smith, a converted wide receiver to running back out of SMU. Kid runs a 4.39, has great hands. This is how the Chiefs have kind of stayed ahead of everybody in the division. They part with overpriced players or players that want too much money, like a Tyreek Hill, and then draft really well every year.
Yeah, that's the key. And look, that they've got the pillars. First Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is Andy Reid. So they've got the pillars there, and everything can flow from that. And that's how the Bills should be now too. Like, okay, we've got Sean and we've got Josh, and everything should flow from that if we make smart free agent signings and we draft well. And I thought the Josh Simmons pick was unbelievable. He was, to me, the most talented offensive lineman in the draft. The injury, of course, played a part in where he went, but just as far as pure talent, I mean, he's a perennial Pro Bowl type talent there. And, I thought Royals was an excellent pick. They've been searching for that receiver consistency. And again, Patrick Mahomes raises the level of that whole group they've got there. But, Royals really has a lot of promise. And, with the Chiefs, with the Ravens, with the Bills, I think going into it this year, again, like those 3 teams will be the best, up there, win a whole ton of games. And one of those 3 teams will be the representative in the Super Bowl. And, for the Chiefs, it's not easier, but when you've got Mahomes, it takes a lot of pressure off of everything else. Everything has to be perfect to build your organization around him.
So you've got, every year we have this little bit of a carousel in the National Football League of new coaches. I think there's 6 or 7 this year. The Jets and the Patriots, obviously. The Titans, I think they're going into their 2nd year with their guy. And we've got Pete Carroll back in the league along with Jim Harbaugh over in San Diego. How are these new guys, particularly, in the AFC, with Pete Carroll, with Vrabel, with Aaron Glenn, and maybe you can pick another one out of there, maybe with, Sean Payton in Denver just being in his 2nd year. Which of these guys has the best chance of, knocking, one of the, like the Bills or the Chiefs off of that pedestal, or the Ravens and Steelers off of that pedestal of being so good?
Yeah, well, last year I predicted, for the Chargers, let's just start there, to go to the playoffs, because you got a coach that just wins all the time, no matter what level he's at, and then you've got a quarterback. And again, I'll always get back to the pillars of number 1, the quarterback, and then the head coach. So to me, that was just written easily. The Chargers are going to be good. There's no reason they wouldn't, because all the guy does is win. And then you've got Justin Herbert, who can be an elite quarterback. And so now in year 2, I expect them to be right in the mix again. So that wasn't a surprise at all for me. And then this year, it's the same thing, almost mirror image with Vrabel and the Patriots of, okay, a coach who has shown I can win and I know how to build an organization and bring toughness and consistency to a program. And you got a quarterback with a whole ton of promise. So, of the 2, last year it was Harbaugh for me. And this year with Vrabel and the Patriots and Drake May, it's almost mirror images of what happened last year. And I expect the Patriots right there to be in the mix.
Mark, thanks for the time. We appreciate the insight and kind of just taking a look around the league at the NFL draft. We kind of suffer from Bills myopia here, so thanks for giving us a league-wide perspective as always. We appreciate it.
Sure thing. My pleasure.